Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. It is Tuesday, April 25th. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, joined by Josh Mansfield, and we have just seen the Champions Cup over the weekend, the first major of the 2023 season. Josh, it was a couple of beatdowns out there.
Yeah.
It was a couple of beatdowns. We had a mostly drama-free final round. It was completely devoid of first-place drama in FPO. There was like a sprinkling of hope in MPO when Silas Schultz caught absolute fire through the first 10 or 11 holes. Mm-hmm. But even then, it was going to require mistakes from Isaac Robinson, and he didn't make them. So Isaac Robinson wins comfortably in the end by 5 strokes over Eagle McMahon and Nicholas Antila, and Kristen Tatar wins by 14 strokes in FPO. That is the largest margin of victory since the 2009 World Championships, when Valerie Jenkins dominated, and it is the largest margin of victory ever in an FPO field with more than 30 players. So, you think about that's kind of restricting stuff to the last 5-ish years. And I mean, we're going to talk through some stats here today, Josh, but it was an incredible performance from both of these players.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny because we go from talking about the parity of the fields and how exciting it's been because the chase card, yeah, right. All the chase card wins in MPO and playoffs and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna win by 5 strokes at minimum for Isaac. Like it feels disconnected from the current reality of disc golf. But I think this is going to happen sometimes. And there are going to be times when you just have somebody who puts together a performance and is able to walk it in. And I think that it makes it a kind of, this becomes what is more rare in disc golf moving forward. This is not going to be something I think that you see as often as the field continues to increase in strength, at least on the MPO side. I'm hesitant to say that about the FPO side right now.
Okay, I will. This is true, Josh. You love to talk about how Macbeth said Isaac was unbeatable that Idlewild weekend.
It is. It's my favorite. It's my favorite disc golf compliment.
I talked to a pro yesterday who will remain unnamed who said,
okay,
nobody was beating Isaac this weekend. I didn't bring it up. I didn't suggest that. That was just, they said that to me. And the thing is, I think that's right. Like, what more were people supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Nicholas Antila, who finished second, by the way, again, is in the same boat as he was last year, where it's just like he couldn't, there was nothing he could do. Gannon was just going to be too good on the final day at USDGC, and he was going to win that tournament. And he did. And there was, I mean, the gap was too big, but Isaac Robinson created this massive gap because he was so spectacular, hitting the gaps in the trees and just shredding this course. And it's easy to forget that he's from Georgia. He's played W.R. Jackson a bunch of times. He loves it out there. And he showed you that he has to be considered one of the best woods players on the planet. Like, you can't win at Idlewild and win at W.R. Jackson and not be an elite woods player. And I think that we saw that, and he talked in the interviews about how he's incredible at hitting gaps, and you got to give him credit. He was able to, even when out of position, he was able to just find a way to get up to the green. And remarkable performance overall from Robinson.
So we were talking ratings earlier, and Charlie, you found out what was his event rating?
By the way, he only had 2 bogeys. His event rating was 1060.
Okay, so his event rating was 1060, and it was a 1033 final round, where it felt like he was kind of enjoying the work that he had done.
Well, he admittedly had a slow start. You know, he was not really giving himself that many birdie looks, and then it just didn't matter because he wasn't bogeying.
Right.
And so then it was just like, once Silas cooled off, there was just nobody to catch him, so he started disking down and just playing safe.
So here's the stat that I want to give you.
Okay.
Chris Dickerson last year won with a 1052 rating for the tournament. So Isaac's is 5 better. But
8 better.
Chris Dickerson's 8 better. Chris Dickerson's best round was a 1060 in round 4 when he had that spectacular round to beat out Ricky and Calvin. And that means Isaac Robinson had 3 rounds that cleared Dickerson's best round here last year.
And what was Dickerson won with what total score?
39 under.
And so interesting that it played slightly easier last year. I mean, some of the course changes made it a little harder. 18's changes in particular slice some strokes off. But yeah, 1074 was the best round for Robinson. That spectacular 54 he had in round 3.
And like you've talked about before, Charlie, as well, is that it feels like in Woods golf, right? Ratings aren't quite as high. They don't give out. I mean, remember Macbeth's crazy 16 under was what 1090 something rated, I think.
I don't even know if it was that high. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it's not giving out 1100s out here, even though I think we can all agree that Macbeth 16 down at WR Jackson is one for the record books, and it's way more impressive than any Memorial round he's ever shot, even though those are over 1100. And
yeah, 1092
vagaries of the algorithm. I got some more Robinson stats for you.
All right.
He becomes one of just 7 players with wire-to-wire major victories, never trailing at the end of any round. The only other players to do that, Josh, since the year 2010, Eagle, Ricky, and Paul. Nice company to keep.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, what do we make of this win from Robinson? Like, he's clearly back on track. Mm-hmm. He had kind of a sluggish start to the season, all things considered. But he's back on track, and is this something we should expect to see regularly from Isaac Robinson moving forward? Should we expect to see him up, near the top of the leaderboard? And I will say, he started out 45th, 25th, 52nd, and then was 9th at Music City, 5th at Blue Ridge, and 1st at Champions Cup. So he's really picked up the play of late.
Yeah, what I think this means, at least for me, is that Isaac is a specialist, right? He's very good at a certain type of golf. Look at LVC, for example, and he took 82nd, right? These other courses are a little more wooded, and Music City in particular, I think you start to get some of those woods, and so that's where you see Isaac start to excel. But LVC, 82nd, just terrible tournament for Isaac. Isaac is a wood specialist, and he talks about how his strength is hitting gaps. When there are courses that don't punish players, and there aren't gaps to hit, and you can be 2 or 3 degrees off of your line, or even 5 degrees off of your line, and still end up okay. Things like power, things like putting, and Isaac is a very good putter, but you have other putters as well that can equalize that factor. And so those other factors come into play insofar, and a forehand, right? Remember, Isaac doesn't have a forehand really. And so you combine those things, and on an open course where hitting a gap or hitting a particular line isn't nearly as important, it makes sense why Isaac is going to underperform, because his strength just is not as much value and becomes minimized. When you look at Woods golf, though, and the reason why I think you can expect this from Isaac moving forward is that with a lot of players, when you get in Woods golf, there's always the case of, like, it's easy to say anything could happen, right? You could take an early kick, go so far deep into the woods, and all of a sudden you got a triple bogey trying to get out, and you're going to be in a lot of trouble just, trying to get your par. And that's why rounds can go from really good like somewhat comfortable leads to gone in an instant. And that's, I think, part of the intrigue of Woods golf. But look back to Isaac Robinson, and they showed a clip of this on DGN, and the performance, at least rounds 1 through 3 on hole 17.
Love this.
He throws
one of the best moments from the broadcast all weekend.
Completely agree. I mean, he hits this tiny gap at full power with the perfect flip up turnover that just drifts nicely into the fairway, and it looks identical 3 rounds in a row. When you have somebody like that who has the comfort, it reminds me almost of when you watch on golf broadcasts and somebody is off and like people are just like a tunnel around this golf ball. And it's like, could you imagine standing around an amateur player around that golf ball like that? Like somebody's going to die. And so the control to be able to just hit that and know that they're going to hit that right down the gap. That's a skill that I think is what exemplifies Isaac's game in the woods, is that you can bring all the trees and stand all around. You know, he's going to hit his line. And that is what makes him a woods player that is probably a tier above the rest. Even if you got guys like James, for example, who have a putter that, you know, he's a wizard with the putter and can throw all sorts of incredible backhand angles. That's what gives James the strength. But it is Isaac's ability to hit the gaps that minimize big numbers. You never think he's going to find himself in so much trouble because he misses a gap that, oh, like Isaac's taking a double or a triple here, and that creates the danger that could hurt him so much in the woods. It's a unique skill, and it's one that means that I think you always have to watch Isaac at the top in woods golf.
Here's his podium finishes on tour. 2022 Portland Open, Idlewild, obviously the win, GMC. Then he was third at New World, which was that silver event in Florida this winter. And then Champions Cup. That's the list. I mean, of those tournaments, the only one you would not describe as like at least half wooded, in the case of GMC, and I don't even think I watched New World. I'm going to be honest with you.
I did watch New World, actually. It's wooded.
It's wooded.
Pretty
okay.
wooded. Yeah,
But, literally, the rest of these are woods, except I guess Portland. Portland's interesting though because it's got elements of both sort of like distance requirements and wood gap hitting.
I say the gap hitting aspect of Portland. It doesn't have like the danger of woods golf, but it does have the gap hitting of woods golf.
So I mean, that's just, you know, I agree though. Like in some ways, I feel like it was we overlooked when we made our picks and when everybody made their picks. I think like almost nobody did well in picks this week on the Upshot Picks website.
Yeah.
Because we're all just thinking about what we've seen so far this season and failing to consider how important it is that we are changing complexions of golf courses completely. It's what makes Kristen Tatar's dominance that much more impressive. So we'll get to that in a sec. Some other notes. Silas Schultz is going to be joining us in just a little bit. Really interested to talk to him. And he's never placed higher than 14th at a tour event in the past. His best finish was 22nd at GMC. And so now, you know, he comes out here and honestly plays great all weekend. Like, he gave a couple strokes back in that final round to end up finishing in 4th, but like probably deserved to finish in 2nd. If he'd played to finish in 2nd instead of like trying to win, which I respect him for trying to win, then I think he probably would have gotten 2nd, because the guy was out of his mind for most of the beginning of that final round when he birdied 11 of the first 12 holes. And like, you started to have after he birdies 12, you're like, this could happen and it would be insane. But unfortunately, he cooled off and he took back-to-back bogeys on 14 and 15, ends up finishing in 4th. But, you know, he had a similarly amazing round in round 2. And the problem was he just didn't really have it in round 3. I mean, he shot a 63 after shooting a 54 in round 2. So, you know, it could have been a different story if he puts it together for 4 straight rounds, but that's what separates major winners from those who finish just merely in the top 5.
Well, and the other thing to consider, right? Silas Schultz had 7, 8, 9 bogeys,
right?
Which
to
is
Isaac's
more
2.
Yeah, right. And even if like Nicholas had 3, 5, right? So like this is not a course that gives out bogeys. I think part of the problem now, granted, this is also why he was able to get so many birdies and on holes that otherwise weren't being birdied by a lot of other players. But the thing that impressed me about Silas, especially in that final round, that dude was blasting the disc. He threw
crazy.
that so hard in the woods, and you don't see players like step up and are like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna rip this thing." I wish we'd had a speed clock on his arm and his disc for that round, because it felt like he was just trying. Like it. I thought that disc had personally insulted him the way he was throwing that. And that probably is what allowed him to get kind of the birdies that he did, but it also meant that he suffered more on the bogey side. And I don't even know if it's necessarily like a lack of experience or just being in that moment. I really think it's just the style of game that he played set him up that when he got a break, it was a bad break because of how hard he was throwing, and that turned into bogeys instead of pars, and that's what kept him from being able to compete a little bit better for the win.
Yeah, so we'll talk to him more about his round and just what was going through his mind this weekend, and certainly this is his first top 5 on tour, and what that means for him, and really interesting guy, and a very compelling social media. I recommend you pop in and check out his socials. Okay, Nicholas Ansela is one of just 11 players now with 2 or more second place major finishes, but no wins. So he goes back-to-back seconds. And like Josh, we don't talk about Nicholas Ansela like week in and week out on this show, but he's starting to get a little bit of a reputation for showing up when it's major time, number one, and being able to handle these sort of high degree of difficulty courses with real skill. Mm-hmm. And I am curious, when is this guy going to win one? Because he's gonna. I feel like he's absolutely gonna.
It feels like he could win one this year. He has demonstrated a skill set, and I think what's impressive to me is he's demonstrated a skill set on 2 very, very different courses. It would be one thing if he did Champions Cup and then say, like, I don't know, Worlds this year, right? And played well in the woods on both sides, and then fell short at Fox Run, but then pair that as well with Champions Cup, because like we talked about, this makes sense. It's a course that reminds us of Europe, of Finland, but I think what's impressive to me is that he's done both USDGC as well as now Champions Cup. I don't know how far Nicholas throws and what his distance looks like, because I think the beast does demand a little bit more distance. So I'm going to be interested to see if he's able to compete over there. I really love to see him, though, and have that European contender at the top in European Open. But there is no reason why Nicholas couldn't win a major this year.
I mean, if you go back, so like he's barely been on tour. He's still super young. So you look at like 2022 is really when he first goes on tour. And his major finishes were 13th at Champions Cup, 4th at European Open. He had a bad World, 64th, and then 2nd at USDGC. But 2 top 5s, 3 top 15s, and then now he backs it up with a second place finish at Champions Cup, improving 11 spots from last year. Like, he's got the tools. And he threw some amazing shots this weekend. I was so impressed by his level of play. And again, I just Isaac was just better.
Yeah.
But I think he's showing us that he's got the capability on the right courses, because I don't think he's going to win on a bomber crazy open layout. But none of the major courses demand that.
Yeah.
That's like, you got to like his chances at Worlds, right?
I do. Yes.
What was his GMC result last year? He finished 8th. Okay.
That's not bad.
And that, his first time playing the course.
Right. Well, and then as well, I also wonder where, like, how much time had he for practice, right? It's his first time playing the course, like you mentioned. And I think it's going to look a little different this year when he's got Worlds and he's probably taking more time to prep for it, which is what I would assume would be the case. So
pretty interesting stuff. Elsewhere, the heavy hitters, Josh, they really didn't show up. I mean, Eagle finally looked like Eagle again. Maybe not totally dialed, but able to fight through 4 rounds and look like one of the best players out there, finishing up in second. But Heimberg, podium streak comes to an end. Macbeth finishes outside the top 10 for just the second time since 2017. The last time it happened, Josh, was that 2019 USDGC where he was hurt and he finished 60-something.
Yeah. And he should have dropped out.
And so like he was nowhere to be found this weekend.
Uh-huh.
And, other guys who were been so fantastic, Gannon Burr. Gannon played pretty well. He shot 28 down. That was 12 shots off the lead, top 10. I don't think you think it was some kind of terrible weekend for Gannon, but still not up in the top 3. Putted out of his mind, by the way. Like over 60% C2 putting. He was number 1 on the green, which is, I think, impressive. A scary prospect for everybody because that's been where he's been a little bit off of his game. If you could find something. So, but Chris Dickerson finishes 11th. James Conrad fell out of the picture big time. Only shot an even par final round. Simon was 13th, which is fine, but Calvin was 16th. It's not like they were terrible, but I don't know. It's just different in the woods, huh?
To put it in reference, the over-under Simon Calvin combo finish was 14.5, and Calvin cleared that by himself.
Dang.
So glad I took the over on that one.
Look at our picks, Josh. You had Kyle Klein, Calvin, and Gannon, and I had Calvin, Gannon, and Paul. Brutal. On the other hand, we both picked Kristen to win correctly. You had Owen Scoggins in second, which you almost did it, Josh. You almost had that perfect podium, but Missy Gannon blew it up. And you had so many options for that third place finisher.
I know.
You had so many ways you could have been the first one to do it, but no. I had Kristen and Katrina, so I also got the 4 points. But let's talk a little bit about Kristen. It's now back-to-back wire-to-wire victories at majors for Kristen after she dominated everybody at Worlds and then dominated even more somehow here at the Champions Cup. She gets revenge in a way here at this course after coming up just short last year, and she shoots a 10-10 event rating. That is the highest at a major since Paige Pierce's 2021 U.S. Women's victory. I got a lot of stats for you. I'm not going to give them to you all up front, but I will say this. This is the first player to win back-to-back FPO majors by at least 8 strokes since Val Jenkins did it in 2008 at the Players Cup and 2009 at Worlds. That's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago. Man, I forget. Like I remember that she was dominant at Worlds, but I forgot that it was 8+ strokes.
Yep.
Like, here's the stat. I'm gonna give you one stat that I saw in an email. This comes from Isaac, and I think this is the craziest stat I might have ever seen in reference to a disc golf tournament since I've been doing the show.
Okay.
Kristen did have the winning score of 14 under. Owen Scoggins came in 13 under. So Kristen at 14 under was after hole 9, round 2.
Oh my gosh.
She had 2.5 rounds left that she could have not played and still won this tournament.
That is truly insane.
I mean 27 holes.
People said she lapped the field. I mean, she literally did score more under par than double Owen Scoggins' under par score. And that puts that in perspective that she was already there by the middle of round 2.
Yep.
That is crazy. 27 holes into the tournament. It was a wrap.
And she had it won. Yeah. I want to go look at win probability and where did they have Kristen? Okay, so round one. So they start Kristen off with a 66% on Udis win probability.
And I mean, that's, I was saying before the tournament, I would have bet Tatar minus 200, and that literally squares up there perfectly.
At the end of round one, Kristen has a 3-stroke lead on Haley King.
She's got to be up to like 80 at this point.
Well, actually, I think Holland might have been.
I think she had a 2-shot lead.
Point.
If I remember,
so
she shot a 9. I think Cat Merch shot a 7.
Cat Merch, there it is. They gave Cat Merch a 1% chance to win at that point. So she's got 2 strokes on Cat Merch. Kristen Tatar has a 90% chance win probability after round one. We get to round two. She goes in. She finishes round two with a 5-stroke lead, and they have her at 94%. By the end of round three, it's 99%.
99.9.
And 90, and then it does not waver from the 99 all of round four, obviously. So.
Of course. Wow. Crazy. Well, so I was looking up some other stuff, Josh. This was one I just found. I looked up, how often are we seeing people shooting 1,000 rated tournaments in FPO? Before 2019, it was only done 6 times at tour events. And since then, it's been done 19 times. So you think about the quality of the disc golf has really gone up. The last 8 times that a player has shot 1,000 rating for the tournament, average 1,000 rating, it's been Kristen every single one of those 8 times. I am happy to sit here now and declare we are in the era of Kristen Tatar. It is no longer a big 3. It is no longer maybe big 4 of El Mondahano. Oh, maybe. Sorry. When she's winning like this at majors, with Paige Pierce nowhere to be found, not cashing this weekend, who is in the mix to beat her unless she takes herself out of contention? Sure, if she plays substandard, she will finish top 5, but she won't win. If she plays average to her skill, she will win probably half the time.
Yeah.
And if she plays well, like she did at Champions Cup, she will blow the doors off of everybody. Like, what was the winning score at Champions Cup last year, Josh? I think you had that up.
9. It was 9 under. I think I don't have it up anymore, so I'd have to go.
That sounds right. It was single digits. She shot a 27 under, and there were a couple holes that got changed, but
not that many.
No. This. I mean, and she said this is like she's never been in a zone like this. She's never played like she did here.
Let me ask you this,
truly remarkable, Josh. I mean, we are watching greatness, and now we got to start thinking about, can she win all 4 of them?
Yes, I want to come back to that real fast. What do you think Own's tournament rating was?
It was probably really good. She shot good. 985.
983.
There you go.
Own shoots a 983.
That's very solid.
And is less than half of the winning score.
I mean, you just have to tip your cap. It was like everybody else was playing a different tournament. They were all competing in their own tournament. And then Kristen had her separate tournament going on, and that she just destroyed everybody. Now, I will say this, it usually takes a little bit better to win a tournament these days. So far in 2023, the lowest event rating to win is 987, and that was Tatar at Waco.
Okay.
And, so you normally have to be in the 990s if you want to win. But, nobody was beating Tatar this weekend. Couldn't be done.
When was our last Grand Slam on the majors? Do we know? I would assume it was Paige.
I mean, I think that the thing is, the major stuff, it's like there's different ones every year. I think I can pull this up. So let's see. 2021 No, that was weird. It's COVID times. 19, page 1, 2 of the 3. 18 was split between 3 different players. 17, page 1, 3 of the 4, but Katrina won European. Big split in 2015. 2014 was all split up. Val Jenkins won one. Kat, Paige. 2013, Paige won 3 of the 4, but Sarah Hokum won U.S. Women's. So Paige has come close, but it's been a while since someone's had a sweep. I'm sure someone's had a sweep back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah, like JK or
yeah,
Val
JK surely did it. JK did it in '99 when there were only 2 majors. And back then it almost doesn't feel like a grand slam to win the 2 of 2.
Has anybody won 4 majors though
in a single season?
In a single season.
I think Val Jenkins did it in 2008 when there were 5 majors. She won 4 of 5. Angela Shigfree won U.S. Women's.
Okay, so let's say 4. So 2008 is the last time somebody won 4 majors.
I believe so. On a quick look at it, that looks correct. Because normally there's been 4 or fewer lately. That's the last time we had 5, and Val Jenkins got 4 of the 5.
It would be special.
It would be special. No question. No question.
Yeah.
Modern era, better field than we've ever seen, more players than we've ever seen. It's not going to happen just because she's good. Like, it's going to take a special level of play.
Right. She's going to have to do this 4 times.
And should we count throw pink?
Right. Well, I mean,
it's going to be a weird asterisky thing if she loses throw pink.
And that's true, but I think you still got to give it to her. Like, if she wins the 4 majors, like, it is a weird asterisky thing, but you got to give it to her.
You got to give
on
it
the
to
Grand
her.
Slam.
I think so.
Here's what I want to see. I want to see the 4 majors, throw pink, and DGPT championship. Yeah, that would have to be. I mean, that would be a season.
And if she gets all 6, right? If she gets the 4 majors, the DGPT championship, and throw pink. It'll be the greatest season of all time. I'll just say it right now.
There it is.
At the level of competition that exists these days, greatest season of all time, it wouldn't even be a question. I think if she wins all 4 majors, it counts. Wild. But I mean, and I don't want to get too far ahead. It's like it's not a given.
Yeah.
She did not win both of the majors she played last year.
Nope. She didn't.
Crazy stuff. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Silas Schultz will join us right here on The Upshot.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Joining us now on the Upshot is top 5 Champions Cup finisher Silas Schultz. Silas also the 2018 Next Generation Tour winner. Silas, welcome to the program.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you on the show, and it was a lot of fun watching you play some disc golf this weekend. I'm just curious to hear from you. This is your best ever tour finish. Yeah. What did it feel like out there to be playing the way that you were, particularly in that final round?
I would say as a whole for the week, it felt a lot more normal than I thought it was going to feel. And that last round, I wasn't really thinking that a 10-stroke comeback from chase card to win a major was really in the cards for me. But you birdie hole 1, then you birdie hole 2, then you birdie hole 3, then you make a big putt on 4, and then you scramble on 5, which feels like a birdie, and then you get 6, 7, and 8, and then you could throw a good scramble on 9, and I knew, okay, well, something's happening. And after my upshot on 9, Gannon, we were watching the next tee, and he was like, hey, like, keep it up. And I was like, okay. And he was like, no, please. And I was like, okay. And then I went birdie, chain out, and then birdie again. So it was really thrilling. It was exhilarating. It was awesome. But at the same time, like, those are shots that I'm very comfortable with, that I enjoy throwing. And so it was really fun. Yeah.
When you came into this weekend, what was your expectation? Like, were you here because was it to win? Did you come in with like yes, I'm going to win this tournament? What were you hoping to achieve? I mean, this is something that I just thought was such a remarkable weekend. I was curious to know kind of what you were planning and hoping for when you came into this weekend.
I don't think I was hoping to, like, I mean, I'm always hoping to win.
Sure.
I don't think I was planning to win, or even like maybe even be in the mix, but I knew, because of my 2 finishes earlier in the year, and then just how I was feeling with my game overall, and how much I loved this course and felt comfortable on it. I knew after one practice round, like, this, if I'm able to translate what I'm doing in practice into the tournament, this can be a really, really good week for me. And I think WR has, like, suits to my game more than maybe any other course on tour. I throw far, and so a lot of people think, like, yeah, Bomber Fest is really going to be his jam. But I am like good at those because I do throw far, but I don't think I have an advantage on like the other guys who throw far. And nowadays everybody throws far. But on WR, I'm able to throw an FD on every single hole. And that's like something I love to do. Something I feel like I'm one of the best at, is like hitting a line like that. And so I felt like I was talking with my brother before I left, and I was like, dude, I think if I have any advantage on any course, it's going to be this one. My game feels really good. And I was like, and if I have any advantage on any other course, it's probably Smugs. So if I win a tournament this year, it's going to be Champions Cup or Worlds. I don't know. That's my only shot. Which we were joking and stuff, but it was crazy to find myself like needing a crazy round, but like pulling it off almost that final round. So I don't think winning, it was really like my expectation, kind of my hope, but I knew that something good could happen if I was able to translate what I was doing in practice.
Josh pointed this out earlier in the show. You seem to be throwing the disc extremely hard, particularly relative to some of the other players out on the course. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, probably. I think my disc makes a different sound when it comes out of my hand. And so it doesn't feel like I'm throwing it really hard, but it sounds like I am. And also when I'm hitting gaps, like I would rather punch it through a gap than play some finesse. I was talking with Gavin Babcock, who I rode with to Jonesboro, which is where I'm at currently, yesterday. And I was like, I will throw soft, smooth shots in practice all the time. But when we get in a tournament, I'm not throwing a soft tee shot. Like it just doesn't feel right to me. It's not as easy. It's not as comfortable. So I'm throwing it hard. And I think I like it better that way. But I also have like a lot of snap. So it sounds like I'm like going crazy, which it's very controlled. It's fast, but it's like my more controlled shot.
That sound that you're describing, I think the technical description is breaking the sound barrier. That's that noise that you hear. Do you feel that can put you in trouble? This is kind of what I was speculating. When you do throw, faster and a little bit harder and try and blast it through the gap, I feel like it means it can compound mistakes. If you're off a little bit, you hit the tree, and rather than kind of dropping or a softer kick, you can blast off into the woods. Do you find yourself in trouble more often because you like to throw it hard through those gaps?
It's a good question. I don't think so. I think to some degree, yes, probably. But also, like, I'm going to hit more gaps if I throw it harder. So that's just like playing the numbers for me. And so, and also sometimes it's like, this isn't always my game plan. It rarely is a WR, but like sometimes it's like if I'm going to hit a tree, I would rather it be going really fast with the potential to get into an incredible spot, than playing it softer, hitting a tree earlier. and not being in as good of a spot. So I think, yeah, to some extent it probably does, but for the most part, I don't really see it that way.
So round 3 was kind of the one that got away from you a little bit. And, if you had even just like a solid round, I'll say an 8 under or something like that, it would have been a very different tournament potentially. What happened in that round relative to, the amazing performances you had in 2 and 4?
Yeah, I think starting out the tournament in round 1, just had like a good attitude, was excited to play and put together a 9 under par. Like, good round. I was happy with it. Even a little surprised that like made lead card, you know what I mean? But like very happy, because everyone shreds nowadays. And then round 2, getting on lead card, I think just the pressure and the nerves and the adrenaline, I was able to kind of like harness and use to my advantage. And like, I really love those scenarios and I enjoyed it. And I kind of knew, I was talking to Gannon beforehand, like it would not surprise anybody if I shoot 3 under round 2. And it would surprise everyone if I shred. So there's I feel like there's no trade-off here. It's fine. I'm good either way. So I think I was able to focus a lot that round, and I had like a ton of nerves, and I feel like they were helpful. And then in round 3, it was just a different feeling. It didn't feel the same, and I tried to play it the same at the beginning. Round 2 was just let it happen. You're playing good golf, just let it happen. Stay out of your head and do your thing. And round 3, it was, I realized on hole 7 that I was going to have to start making it happen. Like, I was trying to let it happen, and my drives weren't as on point. My putts weren't falling the way I wanted them to. And so after throwing my upshot on 7, I was talking to my caddy, and I was like, I have to start making things happen, because it's not like yesterday where it's just going to flow. And so then I went on to go birdie par and then get 5 in a row and kind of save my round a little bit, because that round could have been a lot worse. And then the finish with 2 bogeys was like bad shots with some kind of brutal kicks. And like my shot on 16 wasn't good, but I hit a tree that was an inch wide. And if I kick either side of it, I'm in the circle or circle 2. And if I miss it, I'm parked, and I'm immediately sent backwards OB. And it's not a good throw, you know what I mean? But still, it was like, could have got a little bit better results possibly. But I mean, I'm not, complaining about it. But I think that's overall what happened was just, it took me a little too long to figure that part out.
It was pretty fun to watch you on the coverage because there were multiple points at which you threw a putt and then either like went down to pick up your mini or like started walking it off like you're Steph Curry out there.
Yeah.
Is that it? Like, you just like know it's going down? Like that's we don't see that too much on tour.
Yeah, I don't know. That part was kind of embarrassing. I don't know if it's embarrassing. I mean, it's cool. It's cool looking. I don't know if that was really like, I feel like the person who does that, I don't know if that was my attitude, like, I wasn't trying to be that like showy and like pretentious, but that's something that I do. Like whenever I know that I make a putt sometimes. And when I did it, round 2, just had like, that uphill 30, 35 footer, threw it up, knew it was in, grabbed the mini, walked it down, and everyone's clapping a lot. And I realized like I do this kind of frequently, but I just did that lead card at a major on coverage. So that was, it was funny to me. And yeah, I mean, I do that time. I did it round 1. There was no cameras around, and I looked down way earlier. So that one, it maybe took me a little bit longer. But yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of funny, and I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. But it's good.
Please don't stop. We talked about it on our like midway check-in, and we talked about how disc golf is better with people like you who have, even if you didn't mean to. Yeah. We loved that.
Well, and then I really want to bring celebrations, like basketball celebrations, to disc golf. I really felt like my breakout performance was not the time to start like overly showboating and flexing on like my card mates of the gallery. But I'm working on a couple of them. So I think I'm not
Sellies.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I think we need some more. The problem is like a lot of the NBA ones are kind of taunting to teammates who you've just scored on. And I don't know who I'm taunting if I do the too small celebration running down a putt. But I really want to. Like it feels good. It feels good. And me and Jake Mon have talked about that. And so yeah.
big putt somebody and then just like go up to them and just be like too small.
Right, exactly. And I think that works in a very, very specific situation. But yeah, sometimes it just comes out. I don't know.
I think the ice in the veins one, that one would be fun. You could turn
that's
around.
on my list. Yeah. And then the other one that I'm thinking of is the hot hand, where you kind of like you throw like too many good drives or make too many putts, and then you just have your caddy start pouring water on your hand, and you kind of just try to put it out.
Oh man.
So
I want a commitment that if you make it on coverage again, I want to see one of these sellies.
Okay, I think context matters. But
you're probably right.
But I'll do my best.
Okay.
So, this is your first top 10 on tour. First top 5. I mean, we could go through all of these various statistics. I assume this is one of your highest ever event ratings too, coming in at 1050. So, how do you take this and bring it to future tournaments? Like, how do you take this to Jonesboro this weekend?
Yeah, I think that's something I'm still trying to figure out at this point. But I think one of my big takeaways was, and I think it had to do with just how comfortable I was at the course. But I think if someone told me like before the week what I would finish at, how I would shoot it, what I would shoot, and that I even had like a shot for the win if I played out of my mind and like I was on pace to, like I would feel like it would be like this kind of crazy feeling of like the best golf I've ever played. And like, I think it was, but it felt a lot more normal than I thought it was going to. And so I think moving forward, it just gives me like a confidence boost in myself and what I'm capable of. I think it's easier to make lead card once you've done it one time. And so I think moving forward, it just gives me more confidence in myself. And I think there's mostly just good takeaways, but I don't know. I asked Ian, I was like, do you think I'm just like a lead card guy now? Like I could do it? He's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, okay. I mean, that sounds good. I have a press conference later today. So anybody who gets on, I know, I didn't even know that. My friend was like, you excited about this? And I was like, I didn't look at the list, but yeah. So I think
this will be your first one ever on the press conference.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited about it, but I think just good things to take away. And like one of the big takeaways was like circle 1 putting was really good. That's something I've been working on. I think I missed 4 in the circle. Circle 2 putting was also pretty good. And so I also didn't give myself that many looks because I was throwing the disc so well. So, but it was still like knocked down a lot of nervy putts, especially that last round. So that's just like good experience. And I kind of figured something out that I was testing in my putt, just like mental swing things that are like technical and boring to everybody. But it actually worked like really good. And so that's one of like my favorite takeaways is just like how comfortable I was on the green for, some sketchy stretches there.
Yeah, I just pulled up your stats from last year.
No, please don't. Please put them away.
I have some good and I have some bad. Which do you want first? The good is that very interesting. You were 7th on tour last year in parked percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, this says that you've been an aggressive thrower for some time. And so you're attacking holes a lot. Now your putting, on the other hand, not ideal. Yeah. 248th in circle 1X putting at 62%. Yeah. Clearly you've improved that a great deal already this season.
Sure.
Is 80% this season.
There you go.
Not bad.
Do you feel like there's other things besides the putting that you need to really like step up if you want to become a player who's up in the top 10 on a regular basis?
Not really. I think putting is like kind of the major thing. Last year, I was like working on a new putt before I left for tour. It was going to be like my first outing on tour. And then I got to play the most miserable round of disc golf I've ever experienced. Round 1 of Waco, where it's 30 degrees raining with 30-mile-an-hour winds, and like couldn't get the disc in the basket for anything, and kind of like shot my confidence, and my mechanics weren't like familiar enough for me to like figure it out. And so I spent most of the year, or the first half of the year, just like with the yips, struggling so hard trying to just make putts. And then went home after DDO, like changed my swing to something that I used to do that's a lot more comfortable, and putted like mid 70s in the circle probably to finish the year. And so that was kind of like the big thing. Like my last finish last year, which was like my best finish before this, was 14th at Green Mountain. And I think if I make all my circle one putts, I tie Ricky for the win. And so that was like, whenever I kind of looked at that stat, I was like, okay, like this was a great performance and I'm pleased with it. But there's potential here for like, to like, not just like be good. And obviously like 100% is great. You know, that's like a stat that we talk about for the best putters, but just to have like the amount of looks, you know what I mean? Like that was like, that was kind of something that I noticed and, is like what kind of drove me to like practice a lot in the off season, work on my stroke. I started trying to dabble in step putting a little bit recently. I didn't pull any of those out on coverage because I was way too scared. But yeah, I think for the most part, like my sidearm it's good. It's good for tour. It goes far, and that's kind of what you need on tour. It's just like a far hyzer sidearm. So I have that. I think maybe like my upshot game, like short, like standstill sidearms and like long jump putts. Like I'm really good at long jump putts. I wish I was better at standstill sidearm, but I think my backhand's right there. And so if I'm able to just like become, 80-85% in the circle is going to do me a lot on tour.
I actually, sorry, one second, Josh. I just pulled up your Waco from last year. On hole 11 on round 2, you had 6 putted from inside the circle. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is like Stat Mando right here. That's like so deep. Yeah, no, that was pretty much.
It's a deep cut.
That was the most debilitating, dramatic putting experience I've ever had. I've been playing disc golf since I was 6 years old, and I think even at the age of 6 or 7, I've never 6-putted in my life. I get to Waco and I'm just my confidence shot. I can't figure it out. I'm trying so hard to figure it out. It was hole 7 is what it was?
11.
You guys familiar with the green on 11? How it slopes, it slopes up to it, and then there's like woods all at the bottom. So I go long, I go long left, hit the cage, roll. It's okay. And then I push it air ball to the top. Then I hit the band, roll. Then there's just no saving it. And I just putt until it finally sits down. And it was a crazy feeling. It was the worst. And so I think like that's why that event was like so traumatic for me. Like it was hard to recover, and it took like the full change of my new putt. And really what happened was later in the year, I was just working on like, okay, I can putt however I want. Like I'm athletic and I've been playing disc golf a long time. I can figure out a putt that works and just grind it until it works. But that really wasn't the case. Like I was trying to throw like a Chris Dickerson, like flat from my belt buckle spinner, because I felt like that would be like the best, you know what I mean? But I kind of realized that like you kind of have to just putt how it's comfortable for you. And me swinging my arm straight with my elbow kind of locked, sort of like Aaron Gossage with a different finish, is like really what works for me. And so whenever I figured that out, it was a game changer. And so it wasn't even, similar. But I spent the first half of the year just ruining my UDisc stats for everybody, just to be so confused. I remember I think the foundation guys were talking about it at the end of the year, like, how is Silas putting 60% in the circle and getting 14th at Green Mountain? I'm like, you can't. That's impossible. Like I putted like, I don't know, like 78 or something. But yeah. Deep cuts, man. Sheesh. Goodness gracious.
I went and pulled the same thing, Charlie. I had Waco from last year pulled up as well.
And let me tell you, this year, I threw my drive to the same exact spot where it all started. And I was like, dude, this is where you face your fears. You just get this thing over the cage. You hit this thing dead center. You got this. And I was so scared. I put it right into the cage, and it just sat down. And I was like, par is good. I'm good with
Par is
that.
good.
Par's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to happen again, but I was like, you know what? Let's just get out of here. So, yeah.
Let's just get out of
So,
here.
you're one of a number of really promising young players on tour right now, and you're friends with a bunch of these guys. I mean, does it feel out on tour like you all are about to start to kind of take over and start winning everything? I mean, look at what we've seen Gannon win already this season. We've seen now Isaac gets this huge win. Isaac, of course, winning last year. Gannon's already got a major. Like
Kyle's got Waco.
Kyle was very close to winning USDGC 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So does it feel like that sea change is happening?
I mean, I think I think for some players, it is like Gannon's like really doing really well. Kyle's like doing really well. I think this year we've just not seen the golf that we've been used to seeing from some of the top guys. Vinny's been really consistent, but like Paul and Rick just haven't played Rick just hasn't played and Paul hasn't played as well. And so it's just been, I feel like it's kind of been anybody's game. And so it's sort of just comes down to who's hungriest because everybody's got the skills. And so I think, some of these young guys are just really hungry and just playing really good golf. And I think the it's open to wins more now than it has been in a while.
I just a quick follow up on that. Do you see that in the younger players coming up now that there are skills that you all have that maybe some of the older players on tour do not, or is it just everybody kind of the same?
I think so a little bit. Like if you look at a lot of these young guys, they all have smooth backhands that go far. Like pretty much everybody. And I think there's a lot of people who have made a living and a great career in the sport who just don't throw far. You didn't need to. Being accurate was like good enough, but it doesn't really seem like that anymore. Like a lot of these guys can just bomb and they're accurate and their backhands are super smooth and they have spinny putts. And so I think that's kind of like the new generation of player is like the kid who throws far, has like a spinny putt and can hit from range and also has a sidearm. Like everybody's got a sidearm. There's no young player coming up who just like doesn't have a sidearm. Like everybody does. So, or a player who's like, I don't know, shredding out there. So I think it's kind of because everyone's been playing for so long and they've grown up watching YouTube videos and like perfecting their craft at a young age. Like, a lot of people just have like the spinny putt and then smooth backhand forehand combo.
I think you highlight a good point there because even 5 years ago, I mean, there was the big, is it a push putt or a spin putter? And like that just doesn't feel like a conversation that happens anymore because more and more it's just people, you have to spin, right? Like that's
too windy all the time.
It's too windy.
Push.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really insightful observation. So I've been dying to ask this question, and I've waited till closer to the end because it's not an important question. But I noticed this hat that you're wearing on coverage as well.
This one,
and you've got the hat again. So it looks like an old Olympic hat is what I thought it was, and so there we go. We're getting the close up here. What year is it?
It's the '92 Olympics.
92 Olympics. So what's the story behind the hat? Do you just like it, or is there a story behind this hat?
I just like my favorite hat. I love hats, and so I buy like a lot of. I buy too much clothes and not enough for disc golf. But I use an app called Poshmark, and you can get like just like used clothes mostly, and vintage stuff, and so. Somebody was selling this hat and it was like brand new from like the pack that they got at the Olympics. And it was, I don't know, like $30 or something. And I was like, that's kind of a lot, but that hat is sick. And so I got it and I wore it and I give it a bath like maybe once a month just to keep it really white. And just one of my favorites.
I love that.
92 Dream Team.
Yep.
Classic, maybe the best basketball team ever put together. That was awesome. Yep. A classic Olympics. Well, Silas, thanks so much. And now, Josh, we got to remember this. Silas 14th at GMC last year, calling his shot for a Worlds win.
Okay, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. That is what I said. That is what, but that's not what I meant.
Yeah. So, well, good luck out there at Jonesboro. How's the course playing? I know it's supposed to rain a bunch the next couple of days.
I don't know. We just got in last night, so I haven't seen it. It's looking kind of gloomy out here, and I think, it's supposed to rain and it gets muddy. But I just hope it's not windy like last year. That was kind of a bummer. But, I don't know. I'll see you later today.
All right. Well, Silas, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on with us, and good luck out there this weekend.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Silas Schultz with us here on The Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Upshot. Josh, Silas is exactly how I expected him to be in the interview, which is entertaining, self-aware, and hey, this kid's got some real potential.
I want him on lead card coverage at Worlds all 5 rounds because I want him. Could you imagine, like, makes a big putt and turns around and just stares Paul Macbeth down with an ice in the veins celly? Oh, I want it so bad. That man, get this guy on coverage every time. I don't care where he's at on the leaderboard. I want him in coverage.
He just gets to be on the card at all times.
Right. I just a little baby screen, right? Like, so I've got my main like coverage. And there's just a little Silas tracker. Yeah.
He's like 12 over and he's like doing sellies. Amazing. So we got a couple of things to catch up on here. First of all, Purse Watch. Champions Cup Purse Watch coming in at $140,000 purse. It's the biggest of the year by about $50,000. No, a little more, $60,000. And the MPO payout $96,398, FPO $43,602, $14,000 to the winner in MPO. That's $6,000 more than Music City Open, which was the highest to this point. $8,500 in FPO. That's up $10,000 total increase in the purse from last year. That's 7.7%. Not a substantial increase, Josh, over last year. Any thoughts on that?
I think that this is kind of showing a little bit where payout numbers are going to be, right? We had those that the end of year broke the 100,000 mark. I wouldn't expect them to see substantial gains either, given the gains here on Champions Cup. I think you have exceptions with things like the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, but all in all, I think that 140,000 mark for Champions Cup, 100,000 mark shows where the ceiling was last year for these kind of events, and it'll slowly be pushed up a little bit, but I expect the gains to become more and more modest as we continue to go on, right? Like I know early season it was 23%, 18% for the 2 events that were on tour last year and then again this year. That's LVC and Waco. I expect those numbers as we get to the tournaments with the higher payouts to taper down to the 10% mark as being kind of the more norm of where the increases are at.
Just some reminder from last year. European Open was a $100,000 purse. Worlds was a $200,000 purse, and USDGC and Throw Pink combined was about $135,000. So, just for a reference to where Champions Cup was from a year ago. Hole 18 review. Big change to hole 18 at WR Jackson. They took it out from being a par 5 for MPO and switched it up, put the basket out into the open, built stands so that players could watch people come in on the green. It was like a uphill tee shot version of the fort, with OB around. The OB was definitely not nearly as relevant or in play as we saw there, but we're starting to get kind of a look at, I think, what we're going to see a lot with these hole 18s. How did you feel about this iteration of it, Josh?
I got to be honest, I was not a huge fan. And it was fine. It was fine. But all in all, I found it pretty boring. And I'll tell you now, I've got on the MPO and FPO side, I put a 5. Because I feel like both versions suffer from the same problem. And that problem was that it was too difficult to get birdies and not punishing enough that there was really any score separation. So when you go to the course stats for this one, if we just look at round 4, well, I'll just run through real fast. 58% parred in round 1, 60% parred in round 2, 60% parred in round 3, and 58% parred in round 4. And the most birdies that you had was 11% on the MPO side. So, I mean, scoring just really wasn't there. FPO side, it gets even worse. FPO is 69% par, 76% par, 53% par, and 64% par. So not only is it not even that many birdies, but there's not even that many bogeys either. And so just not a lot of incentives. It felt kind of out of reach. And so it was a fine hole. I guess, like, if it had been closer, I think there probably could have been some drama. I mean, that's the big thing, right? Is there's opportunity to push, but there was no reason or incentive for players to really do so on that hole. Whereas on previous iterations, like Eagle was in play on 18, and a lot of people were getting birdies, but you could really go for it, but you risked the bogey or double bogey by pushing for that Eagle, and so the risk reward I felt like was a little bit better on hole 18 in previous iterations. So I give it 5 on both sides. I found it just pretty meh, and it probably suffers from how big the leads were going in the final round.
I mean, I gotta say this. I mean, I do think creating a hole that has spectatability for 18 is kind of an important thing to do.
It is.
But the actual hole itself, if you remove that element, it was fine. I mean, I also gave it 5s. It didn't. Okay. It's not a bad hole,
right?
But in no way did I find it to be an interesting hole. It's like, okay, we have an uphill tee shot, and then we're just gonna put the basket over here in the open. It's like something that I would see at my local park course. It also feels a little out of place on this course. I would challenge them to rework this hole again for next year. Mm-hmm. Put the basket in the woods and build bleachers in some way that people can see the green, but that it's still like a wooded hole. Uh-huh. It just feels wrong to have this wide open grassland finishing hole on this course. Like that is so antithetical to what this course is about that I don't want that. Yeah. Are the spectators like, wow, what a great hole, I get to sit and watch? No, I mean, yes, we need people to be able to watch the final hole. Mm-hmm. We can't have it tucked so deep in the woods that people can't see. But maybe you can tuck it in on the edge of the trees to the right side and put the bleachers in a way that they can still see the green and see people making putts and stuff. But I just, it's too, like, John Houck is still alive, but if he was dead, he would be rolling in his grave. That's what I would say.
Still alive, but if he was dead.
I'm sorry, that's like a horrible way to put that. But rolling in his grave came to my mind.
I think it's so funny.
I'm not wishing ill on John Houck. We've had John Houck on the show. I like John Houck. But he can't like this 18. I'm sure he can email me after this and be like, what the hell are you saying on that podcast? I'm sorry, John.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I don't think he would enjoy this. I also was, it's fine. It was fine. The one other thing I want to say, though, it made for some great photo ops at the end of the tournaments. Like, if you go look at some of the pictures, you've got the wooded background, but like you've got a little bit better of like some angles with the sun. It looks very nice in the pictures. So it can make sense.
Yeah. And again, I acknowledge the need for creating these kinds of things. I am fully on board with that. It was cool to have some bleachers there. But they can make a better hole than that. That's what I'd say. They can make a better hole than that. Okay, so we are going to, now that we're through the first major, kind of the first chunk of the season. Right now we go back across the country, stopping in Jonesboro, but we're on our way to the West Coast. We're going to check in on Thursday's show with the fantasy, where we're at in the fantasy contest that we drafted teams at the beginning of the season. We're going to take a deeper look at the top 10 for both of these tournaments. We're going to talk to Cap Merch on Thursday. And so, really fun show coming up. We'll also, of course, get you ready for Jonesboro. So make sure you join us there. Make sure you get yourself an Ulti-World Disc Golf subscription as well. We did 2 Rapid React shows during the Champions Cup. You can catch those and relive all of that, the exciting first major of the year. And we've got a lot more to discuss from this tournament, and we'll get to that on Thursday. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on the Upshot.